Welcome to the Home Business Podcast with Richard Captain Henderson, publisher of Home Business Magazine, and Sherilyn Colleen, managing editor. This how-to show helps you successfully operate your home-based business.
Greetings and welcome to the Home Business Podcast. I'm Richard Captain Henderson, your skipper at Home Business TV. Let's secure, proceed, and get underway. After almost 3 decades of advising women in business, Erin Joy has learned what opportunities and challenges women in business encounter. She knows what they are thinking and the best foolproof practices for business success. With a knowledge base this wide, it'd be a shame not to sit down with the brightest female minds in business and share it with the world. That's how the Erin Joy Talks Business brand was born, which she distributes through a radio show and app, and of course, YouTube. Erin Joy talks about her brand and shares valuable business advice that you can use in starting up and succeeding in business. So greetings, Erin Joy. Welcome to the Home Business Podcast. Say hello to our audience.
Well, hello, audience, listeners, and hello, Richard. Thank you so much for having me.
And you're connecting in from my old stomping grounds from high school, St. Louis, Missouri.
St. Louis, Mo, right here in the middle of the country where we're having strange weather events and all kinds of things like the rest of the world. And, you know, it's springtime and
springtime and business and springtime all around. It's like I said, this is a good time to be talking about your show and all, because it's sort of a new beginning here.
And a good time to just refresh and recharge after 2 years of this pandemic. Of course, Richard, we spoke.
I know.
Almost exactly 2 years ago, the first time we got to talk business.
You know, something I'm thinking about since that time, everybody was like awkward and not understanding, Zoom, and people were Zooming away, and before, they were comfortable with it, and it just kind of got thrust upon them. Now it's the way the world works. It was like entrepreneurs and people on the cutting edge were Zooming. Now everybody just Zooms, and
it's true.
Gosh, I don't know almost anybody who's not working part-time, not kind of part-time at an office space, and then has Zoom hours around it. So it's kind of revolutionizing everything.
Yeah. And my daughter has her own Zoom account. I mean, this is definitely revolutionized the world and how we work, and folks who are officing at home and have home-based businesses are so poised, so well positioned.
So how do you monitor
opportunities?
How do you monitor a Zoom room use?
I know, isn't that the question? Oh my gosh, tell me about monitoring all kinds of phone usage.
You got to monitor their phone and their cell phone, and now you got to make sure they're not joining Zoom rave parties. Well, hey, Erin, let's get to know you better. What was the spark that lit the fire of the Erin Joy Talks Business brand?
Yeah, so Erin Joy Talks Business is the show that you were just talking about. I've launched it on the largest talk radio show station here in St. Louis, Missouri, called KMOX AM 1120.
I remember that.
Which the brand and the station from your years here in St. Louis. And the spark that lit the fire for this show was really what we were just talking about. The fact that entrepreneurs, whether they're home-based or office-based, whether they have a manufacturing company or a professional services company, everyone is fried, burnt out, needing to recharge, needing education, inspiration, motivation. And that's what I do on my show. I am committed to educating my listeners about business, how to start their business, how to grow their business, how to better lead their business, eventually how to sell their business, and just to be a friendly voice who is being very open. I'm a very open, transparent, honest person. I shouldn't have said the word honest. That's so weird to call yourself honest. So we can cut that out, or you can leave it in, Richard. But you should always have a little
I'm not clipping
flag.
It out.
Okay, it's always a little red flag when someone specifically calls themselves honest. But I guess what I'm pointing to is, I have a very transparent style, and I don't want to hide or try to hide the fact that I'm struggling after 2 years of this pandemic. And I am a really strong and fortified person with a ton of support and help around me. And if I'm struggling with my well-being, with my mindset, with my energy level. I know other people are as well. And those struggles, those personal struggles for entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
for
Well, they've been kind of
home-based business
magnified.
owners.
They've been kind of magnified with the pandemic,
That's right.
which
They've been magnified, and they splash over into our abilities to operate our businesses. I mean, just a few weeks
Mhm.
ago, I had to miss a full day of work because I was just too worn out and I needed to rest and recover. So I'm talking about everything from, business strategies and operations and marketing and human resources to things like burnout and burnout recovery and building your network and
Thank
everything in
God you were
between.
not burned out this morning.
I know. I know. I have to tell you, I've been really focused on burnout recovery. And this week, I'm starting to feel better. I'm starting to have more energy. And that is important to my business, which is why we're talking about these kinds
So
of
you
topics.
you kind of have a transparent style, but you saw a need out there that wasn't
Yes.
being met, that you have then take a specific angle on with your brand and your program. But let's talk a little bit more about that. You are developing a brand reach through your distribution channels. Could you talk with us a bit about how you distribute your show's distribution?
Yes, yes. When I created the show, I knew that I wanted to have an omni-channel presence, that I would create content once and distribute it across multiple platforms. And that's what I've been able to do by recording one show and then slicing and dicing it to distribute it through multiple channels. The first being the KMOX talk radio station. And so that show is every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Central on KMOX AM 1120. And then that same content gets reworked and some extended content added in for a podcast episode. And then the same Zoom interview gets edited and uploaded to YouTube. That piece is still in play. And I'll tell you what I will share about that.
Mm-hmm.
Richard, I wonder if your listeners can relate. Perhaps you can relate.
I'll relate.
I bit off way more than I can chew when I started this show.
Mm-hmm.
The difference between YouTube versus radio versus podcast, the difference in how you speak to the audience is measurable. And among other things, attempting to create content once and distribute it across 3 different channels. When I first launched the show, and the show is very, very new, just maybe 3 months old at this point. When I first launched the show, I thought I could speak to all 3 audiences at the same time, and learned, I should say, I was reminded of a very valuable business lesson, that if you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one. And I saw that after my first few episodes, that my message wasn't as narrow and as focused, and not just the message, but the delivery style. Because in business and in life, each communication mode requires a slightly different communication style. So we've all heard that about social media, for example. Oh, well, how you post on LinkedIn is different than how you post on Instagram. That's true with podcast versus YouTube versus radio. So I'm still sorting all of this out. And in my transparent fashion, I confess, I absolutely bit off more than I can chew, and I'm in a little bit over my head.
Yeah, I don't think any podcaster or show like you have, it hasn't bitten off more than they can chew. I mean, I'm behind in getting podcasts up, and I think I have a pretty good system. I kind of want to cycle back on radio because, I mean, KMOX is a heavy hitter. I mean, I think if you're out in the California desert at 9 o'clock at night, you tune it a certain way, you'll pick up KMOX.
You can still get it. That's right.
And so, radio is something that, is 100 years, but it's going stronger than ever. And if you can, get out on an old fashioned AM or FM channel, a lot of entrepreneurs they think it's old school, but it actually is really cutting edge, and it's growing more durable with time. So congratulations on, being on radio too.
Thank you. I'd love to share why I chose that as my strategy. It might help your audience to just kind of think about, I'm a strategist. So like, I can get a little too carried away, in fact, with my strategies and the ways that I think about business and how to, move one lever, now that's going to, have a whole set of dominoes fall. My approach was that if I come out with a podcast, just Erin Joy Talks Business, and it's just a podcast, my ability to land the type of guests that I want to land is limited because the barrier to entry to start a podcast is pretty low. And so I'm interviewing the nation's most exciting and interesting and inspiring and successful women, entrepreneurs, leaders, CEOs, artists, athletes, restaurateurs, you name it. And to pitch to those folks, hey, come on my podcast, I'm not going to get very far because they're getting tons of those invitations. But to pitch to that level of guest that I've got the radio show and the podcast and a YouTube channel that's being built, now it's a much more attractive invitation to a very high-powered executive.
So when you actually talk to that executive, you're only having to have that discussion once. You just repackage it a little bit differently so you can handle all the channels.
That's right. Okay. That's right. And don't we all want to do that? Don't we all want to be as efficient as possible?
I'm kind of breaking your rule where I'm doing it in one way and trying to distribute it across. I mean, I'm picking up some good advice. Maybe there's some ways that I can, that I can tailor it a little bit also. But, Erin, you talk with women who are breaking ceilings and breaking rules, revenue goals, and expectations. Anything in particular you'd like to talk about here and breaking the rules?
Man, I think breaking rules for women specifically is so critical for us to give ourselves permission to, play ball with the boys, to, swing for the fences, to really go ask for what we need, ask for what we want, even places where it might not be socially acceptable. I just interviewed a guest for my show who talked about how she is known for not taking no for an answer. Sharon Reynolds from an extraordinary company called Devmar Products. And Sharon is someone who just will not take no for an answer. She views a no as just a step along the way to a yes. And I think that's a great example of the kind of thing that women in most societies are conditioned to be. We are kind of domesticated to be polite and kind and nice. And those traits can be very limiting in business. We want to
make it tough to overcome a no.
That's exactly. That's my exact point, right? And so I think that for women to be successful in entrepreneurship, we need to lean into masculine traits. This is in the research. I mean, as you know, Richard, I'm working on my PhD in business psychology, and it's in the research that entrepreneurship is essentially a bit of a masculine pursuit, meaning that, when entrepreneurship was even created, women weren't even in the workforce. It was all men. And the traits that are typically valued and respected among entrepreneurs are more male traits.
It's got to stem back to like living in caves or something with the guy walking out with a club. Well, that was the entrepreneur of the day,
Exactly. Risk-taking, aggression, competitiveness, being a goal seeker, being driven, being ambitious. These are not traits that are typically considered feminine. And women need to lean into that and make no apologies and not take no for an answer. You don't even know what to say now.
I'm shocked. Like, find your inner man. And so, that's kind of like, so you look at that as that's a big rule you got to break, is breaking out of that, that mindset that it's being an entrepreneur is less feminine maybe, or it's more of a masculine. So you got to be willing to step up and break that. Right. That's on target. I haven't heard it packaged that way, but I think you're spot on there. Let's talk a little bit about startup. What are some of the beginning stage startup challenges women may have to overcome when launching a business. So, we obviously the masculine side of an entrepreneur that could be looked at as a challenge. What are some of the other startup phase challenges?
Well, for women entrepreneurs specifically, the research shows that women tend to get into businesses for themselves for flexibility. We love the flexibility that entrepreneurship affords.
Mm-hmm.
That flexibility quickly turns into, oh my God, I have so much work to do. I'm working all the time, because there is so much work involved with launching a company, with launching a business. I just relaunched a brand, for example. And even though I had an existing business, the relaunch of the brand was a ton of work. So what the research shows is that a lot of women entrepreneurs get into business for themselves because they want the flexibility that entrepreneurship provides: flexibility, independence, and autonomy. And what we often find right after we start our companies is that freedom also turns into the freedom to work 24/7. And entrepreneurs are often pulled to work all of the time. And for women entrepreneurs who have caretaking duties, typically women tend to do 90 minutes more per day of unpaid labor than their male counterparts. Those dynamics can become very challenging for your business. To run a business while running your household, being the CEO of your household, running your business while raising your children, if you are a woman who has children, caring for your aging parents, those are very challenging dynamics. So one of the most important things that women entrepreneurs can do as they're starting their businesses is, first and foremost, have the mindset that although you've got the freedom, you're trading in freedom for some other challenges. And do you have a plan to run your household, to manage your family, now that you are going to be investing all of yourself into your business?
So it sounds like you've got to be willing, you've got to take a look at the boundaries and focus in more on how do you set boundaries and how do you put some structure that maybe guys who are starting up a business don't have to focus on so much.
You got that right. And
I'm
I
trying to use guys now. I'm trying a new term.
Yes. Well, I actually appreciate, Richard, that you even, that you can see that and acknowledge that, yeah, it is a different lens for women entrepreneurs than male entrepreneurs. And one of the best things that women entrepreneurs, and male entrepreneurs for that matter, can be doing is surrounding yourself with other people who are in the same business. In your case, finding other home-based business operators through your network and getting to know each other and having support. The social support is absolutely critical. Having other people around you who understand your journey, people who that you can count on for not only that pep talk that you need when a client fires you, or you don't win the new project, or your computer crashes, but also folks who you can go to provide resources and answers and be a sounding board for you. So between the boundaries that you just talked about and having the right mindset about those, and building your support network, those are two of the places where I would start that are a little bit more in the business psychology domain than in the checklist of,
yeah, it sounds like
that
might be somebody you'd want to connect with outside of Zoom too. Maybe
exactly.
To, there's so much in Zoom. Maybe that support network. You use the term psychology, Erin. You do note that there is a business psychology to being successful in a startup. Any more advice here you'd like to share?
Well, to be successful in a startup, to be successful in a mature business, the research shows that the more we develop ourselves as human beings, the more there is of us that's available then to our business. And so I often talk to my clients about the fact that taking naps is good for our business, because when we are tending to ourselves, we are the business. We are the space of the business. Especially a home-based business is often going to involve a solopreneur or a very small team. And so the business owner herself being as fortified and healthy and whole as possible is related to the success of the business. So I think that oftentimes entrepreneurs want to focus and tend to focus a little too heavily on just working through their checklist, doing all the work, doing all the work, doing all the work, and their well-being just falls to the wayside, slides off the table. And it's been my hypothesis, and it is now proven not proven, I should say supported in the research, that in fact, as we develop ourselves as human beings, as we have healthy friendships, healthy bodies, we're taking those naps, so we're going for a run, we're gardening, whatever our thing is, that is correlated to the success in our business.
So you kind of started with business psychology, but does that tie in also to what you mean with professional well-being?
Absolutely.
Is that a little bit different of an angle to then business, the proper psychology in your business?
Yeah, no, the professional well-being is a piece of our business psychology picture. And, the well-being piece comes from so many things. It comes from having the right team around us and having the right support staff. You can't be well when you're massively, massively under-supported. What happens in a small business when we lose employees typically is the business owner takes over the work.
Right.
And so it's hard to be well when you're working 70 hours a week, 80 hours a week.
That's the hugest challenge of being, home-based, is because it's so tough to reach that point where you actually bring on somebody part-time or full-time. And then that opens up a whole can of worms. And it's so easy to say, I'll just do it myself. Yes. And a month later, you're doing it yourself and you're getting more and more burnt out.
Yes.
I don't know how to answer that question.
Well, there's a lot of nuance around that, around delegation and what to delegate, when to delegate it, who to delegate it to. Can you use contractors before you move to part-time employees and full-time employees? Those things, those decisions are all related to, obviously, to the success of your business, certainly related to your well-being. And that's why you want a thought partner, whether it's a peer who's in your industry or in a related industry or in business period, or it's a business coach and consultant like myself, or perhaps Richard, you probably have resources and networking options and opportunities available for your audience. So those are the kinds of things that we all want to be doing. And it is supported in the research that this makes a direct impact on the success of a business.
So professional well-being, I guess one of the good points about Zooming and connecting online is it opens up a much broader network of people you can connect with for that professional well-being. I mean, I think you really got to get those personal interactions, join a civic group, something like that. But when you got to find the people to connect with professionally to help you out, you can go online anywhere to do that.
You can go online anywhere to do that. And just like you and I are right now in two completely different cities. And those connections are going to positively impact your business.
All right, you're part of my professional network now.
That's right. We're part of each other's professional network and professional well-being.
I kind of like the way you put business psychology together with professional well-being. I think you also mentioned the term, your physical health. You've got to, and that busy schedule you're juggling all the priorities for, you've got to slide in also time for, maintaining yourself professionally. And I like that idea of taking a nap.
And that it's good for business.
So it's good. But anyway, Erin Joy, this, we like to ask this one question, the one thing for tomorrow morning question. What is one thing a woman should do tomorrow morning to further their business success?
I think tomorrow morning, every woman entrepreneur listening should send a text to another woman entrepreneur to get together to talk business. The value that comes out of those connections is just incredible. When you asked earlier, Richard, where did the spark for this show really come from? It absolutely is about, the need that's in the marketplace. And it's also about the fact that I have built a network and that I can cash in my network. I can cash in my network by creating this show and using the show to build more relationships and to expand my network. And so I can't stress this point enough, that building your professional network is an extraordinary part of your entrepreneurial success. And I'm going to go so far, Richard, as to say, especially if you're a home-based business, because you have to bring even more energy and be even more intentional about making those connections. And I have clients who have accountability partners or thought partners. They come together once a week and do a 1-hour work sprint together. They get on Zoom. They say, all right, Richard, what are you going to work on? Hey, Erin, what are you going to work on? All right, let's put our heads down, turn our cameras off. We'll see you back here in 55 minutes, and we're going to report back on the work that we got done.
That'd be my time to take a nap.
It might be. Those kinds of relationships and that kind of work together is fueling the success in businesses. So that's what I would ask and invite every woman entrepreneur listening to do when they wake up tomorrow morning.
So summing that up, you're recommending wake up tomorrow morning and reach out to somebody probably you haven't reached out to before and look at ways to bring them into your network.
You got it.
That's a great idea. Well, Erin Joy, this has been a great discussion on talking business for women entrepreneurs. Do you have any final points you'd like to share?
I think my final point is just to say to all entrepreneurs, you got this. Entrepreneurship is hard. You don't have to go it alone. There are resources out there. There's Richard and Home Business Magazine, all of those resources. You can find me at erinjoy.com, and you can do it.
Erin Joy, thanks for helping us make a good business connection today. And thanks for joining us on the Home Business Podcast. To learn more about Erin Joy and her exciting show, including show times and links, please visit erinjoy.com or our podcast website for more information on guests. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Home Business Podcast. Share your feedback with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our website, homebusinessmag.com. Read the Home Business Startup Guide. Visit us at homebusinessmag.com or the homebusinessexpo.com. I'm Richard K. Madison saying anchors away. We'll talk with you soon. Until then, make it a great business talk day.